first noble truth gives us the symptom, dukkha. The second noble truth gives us the disease all men suffer from, thirst. The other two truths then will tell us about the possibility of curing ourselves and what the cure is. Indeed, the third noble truth is one of the most extraordinary and life-affirming claims made in history. The first noble truth is that life is full of dukkha. Now, what is dukkha? Most people translate this Pali word as suffering, but this is only partly right, and it can be misleading. Suffering is a very strong English word we use on rare occasions. We say we've had a stressful day at work, or that we're angry for losing our headphones, or that we regret not talking to our crush back in high school. Life is full of such unpleasant experiences, but to call them suffering is a bit of an exaggeration. The Buddha meant just such things with dukkha, but he also meant so much more. For example, losing your keys is dukkha, but also losing a loved one is dukkha. Regretting your choice for lunch is dukkha, but regretting 30 years of a bad marriage is also dukkha. Hitting your toe is dukkha, and having a lifelong trauma, too, is dukkha. The point is, dukkha can be translated as suffering, but also as dissatisfaction, discomfort, stress, or unpleasantness. All these things are dukkha, but dukkha is none of them. Dukkha is a much deeper word than any English translation can relate. It is a word used in Buddhism to denote a profound reality of life, namely that we never really get what we want. And even if we get what we want, we always end up losing it one day. This is the first noble truth of Buddhism. But not only unpleasant things are dukkha. The Buddha tells his disciples that even pleasure, material and spiritual alike, is dukkha. The pleasure you experience during an orgasm is dukkha. The happiness from seeing your child born is dukkha. Even the pleasure of learning the Buddha's teachings is dukkha. Why? Because none of these things ever last. Think about it. Whatever happiness and pleasure you attain in life, whether material or spiritual, it will one day all be gone. And when it is gone, it will leave you with the pain of being separated from it. Thus, all the happiness and pleasure you will find in this world contains the seed of dukkha within it. And you will experience this dukkha, if not now, then later. Did his trained mind singularly at dukkha? He looked, and he looked deep. And there, right in the middle of dukkha, he discovered the second noble truth, thirst. The second noble truth is that the cause and origin of dukkha is thirst. You see, the Sanskrit word for thirst is trishna, and it is no coincidence the two words sound so much alike. Thirst actually derives from trishna, and both mean the same thing. So, what did the Buddha mean by thirst, and why did he see it as the cause of dukkha? Well, think about the bad experiences you've ever had, no matter how big or small. A breakup, a car accident, a failed exam, a funeral. No matter how different, these all have one thing in common. That is, in each case, you wanted your experience to be different from what it actually was. This is thirst, the fundamental desire for reality to be different than it is. Now pay attention, it is not thirst for the wrong things, but thirst itself that creates dukkha. A monk thirsts for enlightenment, a lover for his beloved, a woman thirsts for a child, a Wall Street trader for a bigger paycheck. One man thirsts out of love, another out of hatred. The specifics don't matter. Thirst is always the origin of dukkha. Whatever we thirst for brings us dukkha because we don't have it. Even if we get what we want, it is never as good as we imagined it to be. Even if what we attain is as good as we imagined, even if it's better, still it never lasts. The roads of desire are many and winding. but they all lead to the gates of dukkha. Words in a nonsensical way that only appears to make sense if you don't know their true meaning. If one knows what a fire going out means, one would not ask where the fire has gone. Similarly, if one has an idea of what nirvana is, one would not say it is an object of desire. But what is nirvana? And if it is the culmination of Buddhist practice, how can it not be an object of desire? To answer this, we need to look at the third noble truth the Buddha discovered. It is the claim that it is possible for a human being to bring dukkha to an end, completely and forever. The third noble truth comes from the Buddha's direct experience after his awakening under the Bodhi tree. There and then he discovered a reality free from all thirst and all dukkha. This was not a concept or an abstract idea. It was, in fact, something even more real than what we are used to calling real in our daily lives. The Buddha discovered a perfect reality that is always and everywhere present if we have the eyes to see it. He called it nirvana. Nirvana is not only difficult, but impossible to explain in words. We have created words to speak of the illusory world we experience with our senses, but nirvana is that which is beneath all experiences. Words can only circle around it, but never enter it and survive, like moths around a flame. This makes some people uneasy. The great German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote that mystical explanations are considered deep. The truth is that they are not even superficial. To him, nirvana would sound like a made-up concept used to attract the naive and confuse the Buddhist critics. But in defense of the Buddha, let's do a thought experiment. Imagine living on an island full of colorblind people and being the only one who can see colors. You might try to explain to others what colors are and that they are everywhere all the time. But all you do is convince them you're either a madman or a great mystic. Do you see what I'm getting at? To understand the Dhamma, we must allow that what confuses us in it may simply be the Buddha speaking of colors we cannot yet see. This attitude will allow us to discuss difficult terms like nirvana, even if none of us has a full grasp of them. So, what can we say about nirvana? The literal meaning of the Sanskrit word nirvana is to extinguish, to blow out. For example, when a fire goes out, it nirvanas, so to speak. Nirvana is not a state or a thing, but a transition. So, when people say the Buddha attained nirvana, this is misleading. It is more appropriate to say the Buddha extinguished himself. He is, so to say, nirvanat. But what exactly gets extinguished during nirvana? Well, there is a very long answer we will leave for a separate video just on nirvana. The short answer is that nirvana is the extinguishing of thirst. All likes and dislikes, all desire and attachment, all hatred, greed and delusion, all sense of being a separate self. These flames which turn our lives into a living hell all go out during nirvana. In ignorance, nirvana sounds strange and outlandish to us, but one who has removed the beam from his eye, one who has developed wisdom, can see what has been there all along. And the Buddha did not just tell people about nirvana and leave them hanging. No, like a good doctor, he gave detailed prescriptions on how one should live so as to bring the disease of dukkha to an end. His followers compiled all the prescriptions the Buddha gave on various occasions. The early disciples memorized and organized these teachings into a system they started calling the path. This system had 8 major components, and so they called it the Noble Eightfold Path. It is this path exactly that is the fourth and final Noble Truth. Christian, and where I come from, we use a specific word for a wrong action. We call it a sin. But the word sin, especially in the old days, did not apply only to something wrong in the eyes of God. It had a more general meaning that applied to things that were simply flawed, such as a badly written poem or an arrow that cannot fly straight. We have this same concept in the Eightfold Noble Path, the fourth noble truth in Buddhism. This path is based on the idea that there is a wrong way of living, which creates dukkha, and a right way of living, which can reduce dukkha until it is finally gone, forever. This division between wrong and right actions is not based on the Buddha's subjective opinion. Rather, it is an almost scientific theory based on evidence you can inspect for yourself. In the eyes of the Buddha, most people are sleepwalking through life, immersed in delusion. Thus, without knowing it, they live in a way that creates dukkha. The Buddha's teaching was effectively a manual for how to live the right way and minimize dukkha for yourself and others. So, let's see what this manual consists of. Right view means the ability to see through the deluded words and actions of yourself and others. As today, so too at all times, what culture celebrates as virtue and success is usually flaw and failure in disguise. No amount of material wealth, productivity, or pleasure can rid you of dukkha. In fact, these things have the delayed effect of creating even more dukkha. To see this requires wisdom, and it is a right view. Right intention requires right view. Only after you see things as they really are can you create for yourself the right kind of goals. The Buddha saw that man is sick with endless thirst and dukkha, and so the best intention is to try to cure yourself and others from this illness. Once you see things as they are and have the right intentions, the way you speak, act, and live are calibrated to lead you out of the labyrinth of thirst and dukkha. And then we arrive at the final three branches of the path, which are a bit more technical. A lot of people, myself included, believe you can only go so far in your understanding of Buddhism without having a meditation practice. This does not mean that meditation alone leads to nirvana, but it is a vital component of transforming one's perception of reality. It is telling that the last three aspects of the Eightfold Noble Path refer to the Buddhist practice of meditation. Buddhist meditation deserves a whole separate video, so for now all we must understand is that one needs to train and transform one's mind in order to grasp the deeper teachings of the Buddha. The Buddha was a spirit healer, a mind healer, and meditation was his way of treating the human mind from the infection of ignorance and thirst. One needs to put significant effort into developing mindfulness and concentration so as to see through the false beliefs clouding his judgment. This is right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. The Eightfold Noble Path does not tell you what to do. Rather, it is a description of what a fully awake human being is like. All you can do is try to imitate this description until you are gradually transformed into an awake human being yourself.